What do you call, excuse me, what do you call 11,000 ecologists and climate scientists on a deserted island where they will never be found ever again? A good start. So they're at it again. The climate scientists. They've just issued in the respected journal BioScience a warning of a climate emergency. They say that if the climate keeps warming, millions of people are going to die, and the Earth is going to be effectively destroyed ecologically. Well, part of the irony of that is they complain in this same article about overpopulation, about how government needs to take charge of policies that limit breeding of human beings. Yes. So they do want to save lives, millions of lives, but there's too many people on Earth. You know what? They just care too much. They just care too much about us. That's the problem. So they want to hand over the reins of climate change to the crooks, aka politicians. You guys know. So this is the shot across the bow. This is Malthusian thinking. Thomas Malthus, the Reverend Thomas Malthus, in 1798, published his essay on overpopulation, saying that the population was increasing faster than the ability for crops to keep up, and that eventually would lead to a catastrophe and millions of people dying. And of course, we know he was wrong about that. But, you know, that doesn't stop people from making these estimates not based on facts. And when I say not based on facts, this isn't just stupid. This was 3 days ago in BioScience, this latest absurdity by 11,000 signatory scientists isn't just absurd or stupid. It's insane. And I mean that literally. I'm not being melodramatic. Insanity is the inability to deal with reality, to deal with the facts of reality, either because you won't or because you can't, which is a mental disease. This isn't the mental disease. This is the disease of irrational thinking, of going with political stances instead of dealing with science. And one of the reasons I say that is because of what I've been saying for quite a while, and that is we've got no idea what CO2 and methane, mainly CO2 on their part, we've got no idea what CO2 does. I mean, how it affects warming or cooling or whatever. There are no mathematical formulas to determine it. And the reason there aren't is because we just don't have the facts. The honest scientist, and that should not be redundant, the honest scientist knows this, knows that it's just too complex, with sunspots, with evaporation from the oceans, with the oceans heating up and releasing enormous amounts of CO2 themselves. Whether more CO2 actually causes warming. We do know that it causes more foliage to be on the earth, something that they deny in this. In fact, they blatantly lie and say that there's deforestation going on because the earth is warming. That's a blatant lie. NASA photographs clearly show, and NASA says that there's more increase in vegetation, 5 to 10% over the last 20 years, which also happens to be a time when there has been an increase in CO2. So the one thing everybody can agree on, it seems like, is that, yeah, there's been an increase in CO2. The one thing, that's just because it's easily measurable. Take a big quantity of air, measure the CO2. So that's not arguable. The arguable is whether it actually affects the temperature of the earth in any significant way up or down. We just don't know. And that's the premise of this whole BioScience article. And some of the astoundingly ignorant and stupid and absurd and political things that they say, but of course they don't see it. First line of the whole thing. Scientists have a moral obligation to clearly warn humanity of any catastrophic threat and to tell it like it is. Yeah? You're going to tell us like it is? How about you go out there and figure out what CO2 does first before you start telling us like it is? And yeah, scientists are supposed to tell us like it is. They're supposed to basically just look at reality, look at the facts, and then just publish those facts. They don't have to tell us how it is, but let's just say that they need to tell us how it is. So yeah, they figure out that there's a comet or an asteroid heading our way. Well, then they need to tell us how it is. They need to show us the facts of that. Trajectory, impact moment, etc. Help organizations to deflect the asteroid with facts, mathematics, etc. That's good. Tell it like it is. Got some information on viruses? It's fact-based? Tell it like it is. Okay, that's fine. Tell it like it is when you've got the facts. Do actual science first before you try to tell us like it is. Seriously. So they say that planet Earth is facing a climate emergency in a century or less. No, actually a lot sooner than that, sorry. Very soon. But and then they say that the change in global human activity since 1979 have been the most catastrophic. The reason they use that date, they're not going to tell us the reason they use that date. But that's the date. Around that date, 75 to 79, is when the Earth stopped actually cooling, which it had been doing for almost 40 years. And they said, the scientists at the time told us like it is, that it was happening because of CO2 increase. So they told us how it was, and now they're again telling us how it is on CO2. This isn't about science. This is about control. They are making it clear that they do not want freedom, free marketplace, an expulsion of CO2, energy use, the drawing of potential energy from the ground, hydrocarbons, and the use of those hydrocarbons. The hydrocarbons, by the way, that were put in the ground by planet Earth. So planet Earth sequestered the hydrocarbons. Bad planet Earth. We are freeing planet Earth now. We are freeing the sequestration. Is that what it is? Sequestering? Anyway, we are freeing the hydrocarbons. I mean, there should be parades in the streets. The hydrocarbons are free. The hydrocarbons are free. Yay, yay. Oh, they're dancing around. Oh, we're going to use them so we can have electricity. And so there'll be more plants, bigger plants, more fruit, more vegetables, because that's what more CO2 means. It also means fewer people die. And that is supposed to be one of the things these scientists are supposed to be concerned about. Fewer people dying, even though they want fewer people to be born. But warmer weather causes fewer deaths. We know that. It's 10 times fewer deaths caused by warming than chill. So they go on with lots of other little nice comments. Getting back to what I said a while ago, they say forest gain is not, they say the forests are diminishing, but forest gain is not involved in their calculations of tree cover loss. So the gain in forests is not included in their numbers. Why? Well, it's convenient. Well, isn't that convenient? So, they go on. I mean, they go on and on in this. I'm going to put a link to this after I published this. I'm going to put a link down where you can read this in BioScience, this drivel, this trash. So, oh, by the way, this is the same thing. They're doing the same thing that's been done so many times. You've got your ne'er-do-wells who want to allegedly save humanity. They're socialists, communists, leftists, have been for centuries, even though they didn't call themselves that. They want the government in control. For some reason, people in government, they trust in government action. And the reason they trust them, or ostensibly trust them, is because they control the rest of us. And they don't like human beings. These people who put this kind of stuff out don't want us free. They don't like human beings. They're misanthropists, all of them. They're all misanthropists. They don't know it. They would never admit it because they're insane. They've made themselves insane. So they call what these numbers and everything vital signs of the earth. And they say these signs are designed to be useful to the public, policymakers, and the business community. They don't care about the business community. And those working to implement the Paris Climate Accord, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and the AICI biodiversity targets. That sounds dangerous. So they obviously agree with these things. I mean, they're signatories on this. And these things are government controls by the crooks of the rest of us. And thank goodness Donald Trump got out of that crap Paris Climate Accord BS. I mean, who knows if he doesn't get reelected, what's going to happen? It's going to get nasty. And all of this kind of harkens back to what happened with Rachel Carson in 1962. You remember her? Silent Spring, her book, Silent Spring, where she went after the chemical companies, Dow, DuPont, Monsanto, all of them, and especially DDT. And then she was brought before a congressional crook committee and testified. And they all started going, and she started that whole campaign by the crooks against the chemical companies, got DDT banned, even though DDT had eradicated malaria in 11 countries, including the United States, and had reduced the amount of people getting malaria in Africa, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, China, elsewhere, South America, elsewhere, by more than 100-fold, 1,000-fold in many cases. That meant tens of millions of lives, probably hundreds of millions, actually. Tens of millions of lives were saved by DDT. And this bitch, Carson, comes in with her emotional fabrications that ended up later turning out to be fabrications on the chemicals allegedly causing cancer, etc. But didn't matter, because the crooks found a way to get the power using Rachel Carson's popularity, and they banned DDT. So, of course, as a result, just a few thousand cases in some of these really nasty mosquito-infested areas of the earth, of course, they exponentially increased again, and tens of millions of people died. The estimates are 10 to 80 million people have died because of the ban on DDT. Thank you, Rachel Carson, for the mass murder of human beings. This is what happens. So, will this happen if the government, gets involved even more with the whole climate crap? No. I mean, it's not going to be necessarily death, but it's going to be poverty in some countries if they can't use hydrocarbons, oils, gas, methane, etc., gas, natural gas. And then it's going to be a huge increase in the amount of people who have less money, because it's going to cost a crap ton of money to try to find an alternative to oil and gas. But these people don't care. These 11,000 signatories, they don't care. Doesn't matter to them. They're insane. They don't do science anymore. They do politics. So they say there are encouraging signs that include decreases in global fertility birth rates. It's an encouraging sign that fewer people are being born. Why is that an encouraging sign to the? I mean, if that's not misanthropy, tell me what is. Putting the earth over more people being alive and enjoying life. And by the way, the more people there are, the more chances that there'll be a genius out there, the more chances that there'll be even greater products for us to have, better lives for us to have. These people don't care. These people are misanthropists. And, you know, there will be increases in the consumption of solar and wind power. Who cares? I don't want it. And governments have already, the crooks have already shown that they will throw my money and your money into these vast wastelands of solar and wind energy instead of our money being spent on the things that we want in our lives. So all of this, of course, with the assumption that CO2 is bad. Increase in CO2 is bad. When actually, frankly, I think it's good. I think it's really good for the reasons I've said. I think there have been several articles that came out recently saying that the CO2 levels are actually way below ideal for vegetation around the earth. They used to be 10 times what they are now. I mean, there were times in the history of the earth where there was 10 times the CO2. Giant forests twice as big as the ones we've got now. I mean, I could go for that. So they suggest a much higher carbon fee price is needed. Much higher carbon. In other words, we need to pay more. We need to pay more for our stuff, for our oil and gas, for our electricity. And the companies need to be charged by governments. The governments always profit from this, the crooks. They always profit. So they need to be charged more. So their synopsis, their conclusion on energy: the world must quickly implement massive energy efficiency and conservation practices, must replace fossil fuels with low carbon renewables. It must. We must do this. No, we mustn't. We should leave remaining stocks of fossil fuels in the ground. No. Why? We can use them. We can have better lives. We are having better lives. I mean, why don't these people stop using them? Why don't they move to places where they can just build their fires, where I guess that would put too much CO2 in the atmosphere? Live without any energy. Go live someplace without energy. You can do it. Start your own damn solar farm. Go live on a solar farm. That's not what they do. They could easily do this. They could all get together in a commune in Wyoming or wherever. They got good winds. And build their own communities. Why are they messing with us? Because they hate us. They want to control us. They get off on that. They and the crooks who are in charge of government. Wealthier countries need to support poorer nations in transitioning away from fossil fuels. So not only are we supposed to spend more on our energy, but we are supposed to have our money stolen from us and given to poorer nations, to support poorer nations. I mean, and is your billfold and purse feeling lighter for you? So, all right, so this, they advocate for sustaining ecosystems and improving human well-being by prioritizing basic needs and reducing inequality. I'm not sure what they mean by reducing inequality. Where does that come in? So all of these programs are going to reduce inequality? Well, they got a magic wand? This is insanity, truly. I mean, these people are not using their brain. I mean, they're vacuous, empty. So, on population, they say still increasing by roughly 80 million people per year, or more than 200,000 per day, the world population must be stabilized. Okay, Malthusians. And ideally, gradually reduced. Wonder how that's going to happen. Within a framework that ensures social integrity. Kind of like they're doing in China, like they did in China. Each family is only allowed one child. If you have more than one child, the child gets murdered. Or you get murdered. Is that the kind of integrity they're looking for? Exactly what are they advocating for? I don't think it would bother them, frankly. I mean, these people don't care. There are proven and effective policies that strengthen human rights. There are policies that strengthen human rights. Human rights are human rights. They can't be strengthened or diminished. They're just rights. Stupid is as stupid does. While lowering fertility rates and lessening the impacts of population growth on GHG emissions and biodiversity loss. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so, finally, I'll just do the conclusion, the final conclusion. Mitigating and adapting to climate change while honoring the diversity of humans entails major transformations in the ways our global society functions and interacts with natural ecosystems. We are encouraged by a recent surge of concern, government bodies, climate change, emergency declarations. School children are striking. Ecocide lawsuits, I didn't even know about that, are proceeding in the courts. Grassroots citizen movements are demanding change. In many countries, states, provinces, cities, businesses are responding. Okay, blah, 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 gobbledygook. Okay, so these people are coming after us. And science isn't dead. There's still some good science being done out there. But there's a branch of science. This even, I think, is called like, it's called the life sciences. This branch of life scientists is completely corrupt. These people are corrupt. These 11,000 scientists, absolutely corrupt. Worse, which I guess is worse than insane. Because something in them is telling them that they're not going with the facts. They're not using facts on CO2 or anything else. It's not there. And yet they're using that as their premise. So this is nasty. And got to keep fighting it, I guess. But look forward to your comments. That's it for me on this edition of Free Dax and Daxomania, whatever. Anyway, catch y'all on the backside. Take care of yourselves. Bye now.